Finally, we have two local attorneys, John Montgomery, co-founder of Lawyers Defending American Democracy, and Ben Clements, local activist, author, and chairman of the nonprofit Free Speech for the People. John, want to join us for a few words, please?
Thank you all for being here. It's a privilege to be in front of such a fantastic crowd. A couple of weeks ago, I was having a casual political conversation with Mary Parker, one of the organizers of this event. And I explained to her about the organization of which I'm a co-founder. And before I knew what was happening, of course, I'm standing here in front of all of you. When we started our organization 2 years ago, the goal was to mobilize lawyers to respond to the assault on our democracy and the rule of law by Donald Trump and his administration. Frankly, there were many who thought that our charge, that he is truly a threat, was a bit over the top, but no longer. Now we all know, and we read and we hear every day, that the threat is all too real. So I'm here today to talk to you about this thing called the rule of law. It sounds a bit like a highbrow subject for a women's march, but I want to explain to you why it's important so that when you see that term, you understand very simply what it means. Our democracy is defined, of course, as you all know, by a constitution, by statutes, and by regulations. But its success depends upon something we call the rule of law. And the rule of law is like a book of etiquette for democracy. And it dictates the behavior that is necessary for our system to succeed. It seeks to achieve balance between competing interests rather than riding roughshod over the opposition. It values our system of government above all else. Now, let me give you some examples of the operation of the rule of law. When Al Gore and Hillary Clinton lost their elections after winning the popular vote, they conceded, and they urged the country to unite around our new president. There was no law that said they should be gracious, but their conduct was dictated by the standards of the rule of law, and they supported the rule of law in doing so, as so many other losing candidates have done before them. When Donald Trump says that we shall see whether he will guarantee a peaceful transfer of power, or when he says that he cannot lose this election unless the Democrats engage in fraud, he is violating the rule of law. He is violating the norms and the standards upon which our democracy depends. When the majority of the United States Senate, those across the aisle from Senator Reid, say that they are going to push through the nomination of Amy Coney Barrett before the election, and they are doing so because they can, they are ignoring the effect of that nomination on the credibility of our third branch of government, and they are violating the rule of law. And so it goes with much of Donald Trump's behavior. Much of what he does is illegal. His failure to comply with subpoenas, his obstruction of justice, his firing of supposedly independent, congressionally created inspectors general. And when he does those things, he violates the rule of law. When his actions have no consequences, the rule of law is undermined. But of course, much of what he does is not necessarily illegal. His undermining independent agencies like the CDC, the FDA, and the Post Office. His insistence that his Attorney General indict his political opponents. There is no law prohibiting those things, but when he does so, he violates and undermines the rule of law. Which brings me to my final point, which is, of course, we all have hope that come next January, we will be in a position to forge a new path. But a word of caution is in order. Even if Biden and Harris win in November, Trumpism is not going away. And so there is a risk, and there will be an ever-present risk, that what Donald Trump stands for will come back 4 years from now or 8 years from now. And so as we fight in the trenches, as we must do, even if we are victorious, for the future of this country, we have to keep in mind that there is the long term, and that there are many, many people that support what Donald Trump stands for. And it will be necessary to pay attention to the need to come up with mechanisms to forge a new book of etiquette, a new set of norms and behaviors that can support our democracy for the long haul. I suspect that that may be a generation-long project, and that is a bit daunting. But remember that many generations before us have done the same thing, and we can too. Thank you very much, and vote.